Okay, I was just watching YouTube, and it was Francesca Lee, and so she's talking about she's actually doing a response video. It's a really good it's a really good one. And so the name of the video is "How Slut Shaming Becomes Victim Blaming." Is a brilliant sort of illustration as to what I think of rape culture, and it's interesting listening to Francesca tell the story. And she goes, so basically, long story short, she goes out with some people from work, this girl's boyfriend, and a friend of his. So Francesca's sort of the odd person out, right? Goes along with these folks. They end up having this day of just sort of drinking and cavaliering about. And by the end of the night, she's drunk. She drank way too much. At some point, she's blacked out to the point where she can't really remember what happened. As it turns out, she has sex with the boyfriend's friend, that the other guy in the story. And when she wakes up, she doesn't remember anything. But the girl who had invited Francesca out with her boyfriend and her friend tells her, "Yo, yeah, yeah, you guys had sex, whatever," and then proceeds to tell the people at work and trash Francesca's reputation. Now, and I listened to it, and I felt like I've seen that. I know that story personally. I've seen that story unfold many, many times. Um, and it's interesting to me because when she told the story, she talks about, waking up the next day, being told that she had sex with this guy and feeling raped. And I thought about all of the complexities in and around the word rape, and like and for instance, that well, rape victims. Why don't rape victims go to the police and blah blah blah? And this would be one of those situations that's very hard to parse out. One of those situations that's very hard to describe or to illustrate from the point of view of the person who feels raped. And because you feel raped, were you actually raped? And who gets to determine these things and who would back up her story? Because clearly these folks would back up that guy's version and this, that, this. Complicated. And again, a frustrating word to me because as I sat and listened to this story, I felt like if anybody raped her, it was that girl. Like that's who I felt raped, Francesca. I felt like the person who raped you was the girl in the situation. And I feel like oftentimes slut shaming is it's often, I mean, not to say guys don't participate, guys do participate, but this is socialization that often happens between women and women of different social stratas or different social spheres, right? And it happens from a vantage point of one person who has social superiority over another. So in this instance, I mean, it's such a beautiful story because it just depicts exactly what I think of when I think of rape culture. It's this situation where there is a girl on the outside and a girl on the inside. And the girl on the inside orchestrates all of this. I mean, she's not a puppet master per se, but she understands the difference between somebody who is maybe more vulnerable, right, and more open to, say, suggestion, or like, so Francesca, at the time that this happened, she was 18, so maybe she's young, she's 18, she's looking for approval, maybe looking for a boyfriend, right, and sort of completely naive and open and vulnerable to somebody who's like, who offers what Francesca thinks is friendship, right? So from Francesca's point of view, this is a girl who's offering friendship, right? But ultimately, the way that these scenarios often play out, all it is it's a form of socialization that is in effect simply entertainment. What I think of as social entertainment at the expense of the outsider, right? It's the outsider who's reacting to these dangling carrots, and in this instance, maybe it's a new, like, so the girl who orchestrated this is pretending to be a new friend, or offering up her boyfriend's friend as a potential new suitor. So whatever it is, the person on the outside is enticed by the potential of being on the inside of something, and then it is this cat and mouse game that ensues with on at where at the end of this situation, the person on the outside, not only are they still on the outside, but now they're really just a form of entertainment, something everybody can all come together and laugh about later. And I just, I mean, again, I've seen it so many times, and I feel like that is the essence of rape culture. That it's this form of socialization, it's a form of victimization, it's a form of keeping somebody on the outside. Um, it's particularly, I mean, I think it happens with guys too. I don't want to make this just about women, but I've seen it so much, and I've seen, particularly in and around campaigning against people. I feel like that is such a female thing to do, to females. Like, so, and I mean, maybe I guess to guys too. But you know, it's a social thing. It's not like I say, sex has something to do with it, and it's usually a great tool because that's the best way to humiliate another woman is through something sexual. And so guys will do that, but girls do it too. And I feel like it's a culture. Like it is. This isn't about the event. It is not about the sex, right? In this instance, I feel like that is just. I wouldn't say it's not that it's incidental, right? It's absolutely pivotal that it centers around sex because sex it's so easy to manipulate and to ostracize girls based on sexual, like the sexual things that you know about a girl that you shouldn't know. And that's so stupid because everybody's having sex anyways. But the fact that, again, this has to do with girls having a different socialization program than boys do. Boys have a socialization program where boys are very frank and upfront about sex, and there isn't a whole lot of expectations in and around propriety, like being proper or pious or any of these things. Men are expected to experiment. Men are expected to do all kinds of random, stupid, whatever things, and nobody loses um, faith in them. Nobody. That's not. It's not something that can be held against a guy with respect to his, his status or his potential or any of these things. Whereas with girls, first of all, there isn't that frankness where sex is concerned. So girls may have sex, but nobody's really supposed to know about it if they are having it. And if people do know about it, then that becomes an opportunity to exploit a girl, to embarrass a girl, or to in some way, shape, or form, um, lock her out in some way. So and it's as academic as that sounds, it's really not. It's vicious. Um, it's you know malicious. It's truly a form of social entertainment for people. And it's funny because I think I've seen it my whole life. I remember this sort of behavior starting probably in an once cliques start showing up in your social world. That's when I think this behavior starts. So I think we started to clique around grade 5, and then from that point on, this becomes part of your social, not just your social conditioning, but your social negotiation as a female. Your sex becomes part of your social conditioning and your negotiation. Your friends' circles, the guys you date, all of this becomes part of your social conditioning and your negotiation with the outside world. Now, somehow, you have to protect your sexuality from prying eyes and prying ears while at the same time experiencing enough sex so that you're not, cast out as some social pariah because you've never had sex. So it's a really bizarre tightrope to have to walk as a female. Hence, it's very important to have friends that you trust and relationships with trustworthy people. That's a very difficult thing to negotiate at 14, 15, 16, 17 years old. And unfortunately, I think that that continues well into adulthood for some people. So, depending on what your social circle is, you may never ever be in a position to be around trustworthy or mature people, for that matter. So, you know, and that aside, just sort of the growing pains of life in general, these particular instances where a woman's sexuality becomes a target, uh, um, it's uh, it's amazing. And again, my frustration with this situation is the word usage, the word rape. To me, as I look at this story, I feel like this was about a situ like this girl. I mean, I'm sure she felt raped by the guy, but to me, I felt like that is such a brilliant example as to how rape culture uh, sort of interacts with people, right? That this is about social programming and social conditioning and social entertainment. Humiliation is some form of social entertainment. And so just really, that's what I just wanted to point to that and say that that's what I think of when I think of rape culture, that it is equal parts men and women, that it is about this dynamic. It's a social dynamic between an outsider and an inside group. It is about manipulation. It is about humiliation. It is about ostracizing, somebody who is not valued or seen as a person. Now, the other thing that came up as I was thinking about this was whether or not this was conscious, and that I'm not sure about. That I'm not sure if it's a conscious thing. So my creative side wants to say that this girl did this to this other girl completely consciously, completely aware of what she was doing, completely aware of, you know. But I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it's just sort of circumstantial, subconscious. Um, but then again, I think, at the end of the night, Francesca had said to this girl, don't say anything to people, and this girl explicitly betrayed that, and touted this night amongst their social peers, and so at least that part of it I can say was absolutely conscious. But I'm wondering if maybe it was all conscious, and I'm thinking that the feeling that Francesca walked away with that night, she probably attributes it to the sex, but I'm thinking you weren't raped as a result of the sex that you had that you cannot remember. You were raped as a result of this social interaction with these people who violated your trust, and is a result of interacting with these people. It's not just the sex. It's the entire engagement. It's the entire scenario. It's the entire situation. And that to me is what rape culture is like. It's everybody participating. It's all eyes on the situation. It's all ears that are privy to. It's all people who smirk at the expense of, you know, I don't even know. And sometimes I don't even think it's so much that it's at the expense of the person, so much as it is because it is just social entertainment, you know. And oftentimes in these situations, it is at the expense of somebody. But I think that humiliation might be some ancient form of social entertainment. And I mean ancient in the sense that we've probably been doing this for generations. In any case, yeah, that's rape culture. That's a great example. That's a great story. The subtleties of it, all of the ways that we all play into it. So it's not just the act of sex, it's everything that led up to it. That situation of the girl on the outside versus the inside, and everything that happened afterwards, the campaigning afterwards, all of that is rape being done to an individual, her psyche, her spirit. I'm not, and again, I wish it wasn't the word rape, even though I think it is a form of rape. But I say the word bothers me because it makes it sound like it's about sex or it's about a guy. It's how he violated this girl. No, no, no. It's a social dynamic that that takes the outsider and puts them through some sort of humiliation ritual that entertains the people on the inside. That is rape culture.